Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the oh-so-beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you join us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends, your kid's teacher, principal, librarian, all about the show. And please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Mark Bello. He is here to celebrate Happy Jack, Sajak. Before we invite Mark into the studio, we want to invite you to connect with us on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Reading With Your Kids on TikTok. Be sure to check out our Reading With Your Kids pages on Pinterest and YouTube. We also would love to connect with you on Twitter. It's at Jedley Magic on Twitter. And of course, we would be delighted if you could visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, sign up for our free newsletter, and also use the contact button at the top of the page to send us a message. We'd love to know what you love about the show. We'd love to know what you think we could be doing better. And we would especially love to know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the Reading With Your Kids podcast, even if that person is yourself. Yeah, check it out today, readingwithyourkids.com. Join us right now from the beautiful city of Detroit in Michigan. Our guest today is here to celebrate his debut picture book. It's called Happy Jack, Sajak, a bullying story. Please welcome to the show, Mark Bello. Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm good, Jed. How are you?
I'm
Thanks
wonderful.
for having me.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I mentioned this is your debut picture book, but it's not your debut book. You've written a number of novels for adults. Am I right?
That is correct. They're all hiding behind me.
Yes.
Under the cityscape of Detroit.
Yeah. So we'll touch on those a little bit as we go along. But let's find out what Happy Jack Sajak is all about, please.
Happy Jack Sajak was born from a feeling, for lack of a better way to say it, that I have, that we are delivering safety and social justice messages to kids at too late an age. And this particular book is a book, as you mentioned, about bullying, and the bullying that happens in kindergarten. And I firmly believe that children imitate their parents. Mm-hmm. And if the child is a child of a bigot, that child is going to be a bigot as early as kindergarten, as early as first grade, second grade. And the purpose for writing the book is to bring awareness to the issue at as young an age as possible. Mm-hmm. The book that follows Happy Jack, that is currently being illustrated, is a book about distracted driving. And there again, I feel that what we do as a society is when a kid gets to driver's training, he learns that distracted driving is a bad thing. By the time he gets to driver's training, he's 16, 17, 18 years old. He's been addicted to a phone since he's 10. And his habits of looking at his phone at all times, or keeping his phone on his hip, or referring to it all the time, or talking to his friends by text rather than by human contact, mm-hmm. have already been established. So my attitude is, as early as possible, mm-hmm. let's get these messages to the kids that picking up a phone while you're driving and looking at your phone instead of looking at the road is not a good idea. Mm-hmm. And let's have the kids in the back seat, even in their car seats, tell their parents, put down your phone, put down your makeup, put down that food you're eating. Stop playing with your navigation machine. Stop changing the channels on the radio. The purpose of a car is to drive it. Now, I'm not suggesting that we can't enjoy a drive, and that it's all business. But there's enough distractions in life, and there are enough risks to our safety. And I've represented people who have been hurt in accidents and been injured unnecessarily for so many years, and for so many unnecessary or unbelievably coincidental accidents, that I don't think we have to engage in behavior that makes an accident more possible or more likely than not.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point of this book and the book that follows it.
I think that was a really important lessons for our kids. I didn't mention at the top that you are also a practicing attorney, and you've been an attorney for many, many years. And so you have seen the results of distracted driving. You've seen the results of people not treating each other with respect and dignity. And I agree that these are things that we need to start teaching our kids at the youngest of age. And a great way to do that is through reading with them, not necessarily just reading a book about that topic, but we can always work in a message of our values no matter what it is that we're reading.
No question. And answering their questions while you're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This particular bullying book is about a biracial kid who lives in an all-white neighborhood, never realizes or thinks about the fact that he's different from his friends, but he goes to school for the first time in kindergarten, and he encounters a kid who doesn't think he ought to be there because he's not like the other children. So again, aside from bullying, there's a message about the content of our character, as Martin Luther King used to talk about, rather than the color of our skin.
Right.
So it's not just bullying, at least in this book. It's bullying for a reason. But the bullying message, the anti-bullying message, whatever the reason is an important message to get to kids at as early an age as possible.
Yeah. One of the things that we have advocated here on the podcast since we debuted is no matter what the issue is, no matter what your politics are, no matter what your faith tradition may be, the one thing we need to teach our kids is that every kid they encounter deserves to be respected, loved, and accepted and included. And I think that's exactly what you're saying with this book.
Amen to that, Jim.
Yeah. What was it that, because you are an attorney, you do write novels for adults, you have a lot on your plate already. What was it that motivated you to write a children's picture book?
I don't remember. What motivated me to write, which is what I thought you were going to ask, was a case I handled years and years and years ago in my 30s. I'm 70 now. Two boys were abused by a priest, and I handled one of the first cases of that type in the country back in the early 80s. The incident happened in the mid-70s. The case stayed with me. It wasn't the abuse. I'm not saying we're immune to abuse. There have been a lot of incidents, and we kind of have grown to expect it, if you will. But what shocked me was the conduct of his enablers, who had a hierarchy that was willing to look the other way, but not only look the other way, cover up the crime, move the offender to a different community without telling the community that he was there and that he was a predator, without taking him away from children, and allowing him to do it again and again and again. And that behavior so blew my mind that I said to myself, someday you've got to write a book about this experience, because I had to travel to 7 states, find witnesses that were uncooperative, uncover people that were not disclosed to me by asking members of the community I essentially did my own investigation with the help of my partner, and we blew the lid off of the conspiracy. I thought that I was going to write a nonfiction book, but the tale was so compelling, this clandestine effort by the church to cover all of this up. That's still going on today, by the way. They acknowledge the problem, but they don't acknowledge the scope of the problem. And I decided to write a fictional account where I created a CIA-type organization within the church that is tasked with covering these incidents up by any means possible. And I mean by any means possible. Now, I'm not saying that that's what the church has engaged in. I'm telling you that as an attorney, that's what it felt like. It felt like somebody was pulling the strings behind the scenes and doing things to stand in my way, to stand in the way of justice.
I don't have any firsthand knowledge. I grew up Catholic. I attended a Catholic school. A number of the priests that taught at the school that I attended in the 70s are in jail or passed away in jail for their crimes. And I see no reason to dissuade you of your thought that there was a clandestine CIA-type operation in the church happening, because, yeah.
By the way, in the book, because it's fiction, I did not identify the church as any particular denomination.
Okay.
I felt that what happened and what is happening could happen to any organization or any religious institution. I didn't want to pick on Catholics, but nobody has behaved like the Catholic Church has, the hierarchy. I'm astounded by it. This particular priest, in my case, went to jail, as the gentleman you mentioned, got out of prison, and they put him back in another town and another parish where he committed the same crime a second time.
Okay. That's worse than anything.
This is not the topic for a children's show, but
we're talking to adults, and I'm actually I really am glad that you brought it up, and because it's connected in a way, and I'll tell you why. We're talking about Happy Jack, Sad Jack, a bullying story, and one of the messages that we can talk to our kids about as we're reading Happy Jack, Sad Jack, or any book that touches on the topic of bullying, is we can talk to our kids about the fact that they deserve to they have a right to go to a school where they're safe. They have the right to tell an adult if they're being hurt. Hopefully they'll tell us, but the chances are they might not want to tell their parents. Ironically, when my son was in middle school and I am going around the country performing educational magic shows that was dealing with the topic of bullying, my son was the target of a bully, and he didn't say anything about it. And we specifically asked him about it because we saw some things that concerned us. No, we're fine. I'm fine.
How old was he?
He was seventh grade, so 11, okay. 12. And fortunately, a girl in the 8th grade who I had taught some magic to because she was getting in trouble. The principal thought this would be a way to kind of get her back in the straight and narrow. She saw something, and she came to me, and she mentioned it, and we were able to deal with it. And so the reason the abuse in the Catholic Church went on so long, one of the reasons is the kids didn't say anything about it. And so we need to talk to our kids about if anybody hurts you, whether it's a priest, a teacher, a classmate, whether it's hurting you with words or touching you inappropriately, we need to let them know that they have the right to tell us and to get help.
If you think about it, child abuse is the ultimate bullying.
Oh, absolutely. And what you experienced from the church, from the hierarchy, was bullying on
No question.
a corporate scale. I know a lot of what happened.
I don't want to get into
That's
tremendous amount of details here, but it was worse than that. My partner and I are Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced bullying when I was a kid for moving from a mostly Jewish neighborhood to a non-Jewish neighborhood. And it never occurred to me not to tell somebody I attend synagogue rather than church. So some kid comes up to me and he says, "What church are you going to attend?" And I said, "I don't attend church. I attend synagogue." And he said, "You're a Jew?" And he used the K word.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "I don't think so." And he punched me in the mouth and knocked me to the ground. Never experienced anything like that in my life. And I led a sheltered life. It wasn't something my parents thought they needed to talk to me about.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine every Catholic kid, just like every black child, gets the talk now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad. But the abuse happens in the Boy Scouts.
Mm-hmm.
It happens in other churches. It happens in synagogues. It's not unique to the Catholic Church. What's unique to the Catholic Church is this cover-up and this conspiracy that I write about in my first book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That blows my mind.
Yeah.
And still does. It's still going on.
Yeah.
This nonsense that there's a, quote, shortage of priests. I'd rather be preached to by a layperson than a pedophile. And I think every other Catholic, any Catholic would.
Amen.
And that's the bottom line.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Amen. And it does happen in different places. I was unfortunately part of, I was called in, there's a group of, that kind of like Boy Scouts for young magicians. And there was a leader in that group here in the Boston area who was abusing kids for a long while. And when it came out, I was called into, and thankfully the national organization recognized it. They called me in and asked me to address the parents, and they were very proactive and like, "Hey, we want to know, and are there other victims out there?" And they were very cooperative, unlike what you experienced. Yeah.
I had a great counselor who kind of pulled me aside and sheltered me, for lack of a better way to say it, that entire year. To your own son's experience, this was in the 6th grade. So I went through K through 5 in Northwest Detroit, which was predominantly Jewish. And I mean predominantly Jewish. There was one Christian child in class consistently, maybe two, throughout my entire first 5 years of school. I moved to Oak Park, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit, and I'm one of 7 Jewish kids in a class of 30. That's quite a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that didn't bother me any. A kid is a kid.
Right.
Until I found out that it bothered them.
Yeah.
It was a whole unique experience to find out that being Jewish bothered people. I never knew that.
Yeah. And it's really crazy. And I think I'm glad that we're talking to kids at a younger age about the fact that people are different. And that's a beautiful thing. And people look different. And they speak different languages, and they eat different food, and they have different faith traditions. Or some kids don't have any faith background at all. And that's all okay.
There's a wonderful, I don't want to pat myself on the back.
Don't hurt your elbow.
But I'm proud of this book.
Right.
I've never written a children's book before. It's a story in rhyme, but there's one page I'm particularly proud of. And when I read the book to you, I presume that's what I'm going to do. Yes.
We can have you read. Absolutely. Yeah.
Or I'll just read that page, but
sure.
I do want to read that because it speaks exactly to what you're saying.
Okay. Let's hear it.
The page or the book?
The page.
Okay. The page goes like this. If I can find it. Here we go. And you'll find that it's almost exactly what you just said, only it rhymes. People are different in color, shape, size, ears, noses, mouths, and different shaped eyes. Different races and genders. More, too. Christian or Buddhist or Muslim or Jew. But there's one thing in common we all have in this place. We are all valued members of this human race.
Amen.
And that's essentially what you just said.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Only I said it better.
You did. You did. You rhymed it. It's beautiful. Nice pacing, nice rhyming. Mark, you experienced bullying at a young age. You experienced it in your court cases with the church. You've, in essence, been a defender for all of your career. You've been defending and championing people who've been hurt, either through an accident or intentionally. Where did that, and that takes a certain amount of courage and to do that. Where do you think you obtained that courage?
Well, the easy answer to that is from my parents.
Mm-hmm.
My parents taught us good values, for lack of a better way to say it. The little guy matters.
Mm-hmm.
My father wasn't a powerful man or a wealthy man. He was just a simple guy who eked out a living as best he could. His biggest influence on me was education, education, education. One of his favorite things to say to me was, education is your ticket to success.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really embrace that throughout my school career until later in life, but it's an important message.
Mm-hmm.
Stand up for the little guy. They wanted me, as all Jewish parents do, to be a professional.
Mm-hmm.
My son, the doctor, my mother used to say all the time, but science got in the way. I was okay in math, but I couldn't handle the science.
Mm-hmm.
So my son, the lawyer, would have to do. The way I got involved in this particular area of the law, standing up for the little guy, was simply not a powerful story, but it was my first job.
Mm-hmm.
You go looking for a job, someone actually agrees to hire you. It doesn't matter who it is, and it happened to be a plaintiff personal injury firm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, having said that, here I am almost 50 years later, and I couldn't have done anything else. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't have been on the side of depriving somebody with appropriate justice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very happy with the choice I made, but it was quite accidental. It was simply a function of knocking on the right door at the right time and getting hired.
Yeah. There may have been a higher power that led you to that door.
Could be.
Yeah.
You also have to like what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And embrace what you're doing, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
Those values, those issues that I practiced and that I write about are important to me.
Yeah.
And we're discussing, I guess, in a broad sense, bullying. And every one of my books, if you take them from 1 to 8, and then to my children's book, are about, in some way, the powerful picking on the powerless.
Mm-hmm.
David versus Goliath story. That's what plaintiff lawyers do. One lawyer in court is as powerful as a major corporation is in a court of law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are money differences. There are power differences. There are talent differences from one lawyer to another. But when you hit the courtroom, it's you versus them, equal justice under the law.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I loved about this interview we had tonight, Mark, is that we talked about values, and we started off by saying Happy Jack Sajak is a great book for us to sit down and to talk about these values with our kids. Talk about that page with our kids. You mentioned Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I was a boy who saw his I Have a Dream speech in the news with my dad sitting after dinner one night, after it happened. And my dad said to me, I like that dream. Let's make it happen. And, from something as simple as that, combined with his behavior and watching, how he treated people, made a huge impact on me. And I think we always have to remember that we are our kids' first and most important teachers. And everything that we do, we're being watched, we're being imitated.
We're being judged.
We're being judged, yeah. And I think we want to raise kids who share our values and are going to treat people with respect, love, and inclusion.
Absolutely. And to the speech, my favorite line in the speech is judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin.
Yeah, perfect. I can't think of a better way to end our conversation than with a quote from Dr. King, but maybe we should tell people where they can go to find out more about Happy Jack Sajak.
The best place to find out about Happy Jack Sajak, since it's not yet on my website, is at Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
If you Google my name or Google Happy Jack Sajak, you'll find the book. There's also an activities book that I wrote. I would like to present the book to classrooms around the country,
mm-hmm.
For the reasons that we have talked about all evening long. And I created an activities book that helps deliver these messages by providing games and puzzles and questions to answer as well.
Perfect.
So that's available on Amazon alongside, if you will, the picture book.
Wonderful.
And then I'm hoping that the distracted driving book will come out for the holidays.
Perfect.
But that depends on the illustrator.
Yeah. And I know teachers are listening right now, or parents who are on PTO committees. If they want to connect with you and find out how they can invite you into their classrooms, how should they contact you?
Legal thriller author at yahoo.com.
Legal thriller author at yahoo.com.
Correct.
Awesome. We've had a really important chat with the author of Happy Jack Sajak, Mark Bello. Mark, thanks so much for this time.
My pleasure, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Dr. Ravi Rajan Ratnam. He'll be here to celebrate hardwiring versus rewiring. It's a really fascinating conversation about how we can help our kids develop a great mindset for learning, and maybe how we can rewire ourselves to have an even better mindset towards learning. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Chris, I want to start by thanking our guest, Mark Bello. Please be sure to check out Happy Jack Sajak. Also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Nicole Bell Castro, Mirabella Q. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.